Welcome to Slate Against the Machine. This is a podcast from Fae Pictures, a production company in Toronto that does television, film, and is on a mission to decolonize Hollywood. I am joined here by Fae's VP of Development and my Lord and Savior, Abdul Malik.
Hello, son. I've come from the mountaintop to deliver the 10 Commandments of writing. Hi, I'm Abdul. I'm a writer, ersatz development executive at Fae, and now VP in the company. And with me is our VP of Finance, Lisa.
Hi, I'm the VP of Finance, Lisa. I've also spent many years producing documentaries. And now over to our person who started the company, not owner, Shant.
Yeah, or not the last, because we have no idea the order of these podcasts. So I'm not going to say the last podcast. I'm just going to say a podcast that you'll find at another time talks about me owning these people, and we are now trying to find a way to describe me that's not owner,
not like Thomas Jefferson-esque.
Yes, founder. I think Zareen used founder on an Instagram post this morning, and I was like, nope. Don't call me a founder. Don't call me an owner.
Shant will be played by Michael Douglas in 2 years.
No, I mean, president's fine. I'm more than happy to be president.
There we go.
Oh, we're in Canada, Shant. You're prime minister.
I'm prime minister. And each of you were elected in your local. You're members of the constituencies of Fae Pictures. And
he is the Emmanuel Macron of Fae Pictures, if you will. He is the Stephen Harper of Fae Pictures.
There you go. Head of state.
Call me
your head of state.
The Margaret Thatcher.
Exactly. The Iron Lady of Fae Pictures.
Yes. The Iron Shanti.
There you go.
Leonard, what is today's podcast about?
Today we are going to talk. Today, and this is something you shouldn't do when we're talking. When we're doing the thing we're talking about today, which is pitching and packaging.
Mm-hmm.
And talk about how to put together and sell a project. And you know what? And this will be a real wide open discussion. But like the first question, real, again, open question. What makes a good pitch?
I mean, Lisa, I'll hand it to you first. You were on the money with that one.
On the money. So I remember relatively early on, for one film, over 4 market events, we took at least 80 meetings. And so we boom, 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 sometimes 9 in a day, pitch meetings. And so this is one-on-one. And I think I realized early on, it's like, oh, they're not just thinking about the project and the access and the creativity and all that. They're looking at how well the team works together. They're looking at the relationship. In my case, it was a director and producer, documentary director and producer. I have not been part of narrative or scripted pitches, so I don't know what they, is it writer, producer, who would that be?
Usually it's writer, producer, sometimes the director for a feature, but not for TV.
Exactly. So they're actually, once you're seasoned enough, you're like, yeah, we've heard every idea 10 times over. What is the relationship between these two people? And do we want to work with them? But they never, ever tell you that. So that, I remember when I had that light bulb moment and everything changed for me from that point forward in terms of we're pitching ourselves and we have a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I've sold a lot of projects off pitches. I can actually say that confidently. Like that's not me bragging. I also teach a lot of classes on pitching. You know what I mean? Like a lot of times people will contract me and be like, how to pitch, how to package, how to put together a sales doc and stuff like that. The biggest thing about what makes a good pitch is confidence without arrogance. Like if I see the word maybe, could be, we could do this, something like that. If that comes up as an answer, even if we're hearing a pitch at Fae, that is a sign of a creative who does not know their own project. Whether or not it's sincere, that is the biggest thing. Is a big litmus for pitches is how willing are you to express responsiveness to notes or thoughts that might come up or questions? How well can you answer the questions? And also how much do you believe in this thing? Because anyone who's hearing your pitch does not believe in it. They want you to make them believe in it. And that is a very tough sell. There were projects in the States that were taken out last year with like actors who would guarantee production, like who were attached, that failed in the pitch stage for exactly those reasons. Like, you know, I've heard a couple of stories from like producers and agents in the US who were directly like in some of those rooms and stuff like that, where they're like, we had an actor who is a bankable $1 billion star, and the actor was great, but the creative did not have confidence in their idea, and it soured the room. And it's like, there is a art to pitching, but that art is entirely based around how much, like, you cannot pitch bullshit. People will smell it out, they'll smell the fear, and they will, you know, throw you away like chum in the water. And then the next time you pitch, they'll remember that first pitch and they won't want to hear your pitch.
Yeah, you have to. It's any, like, I used to be in sales before I was doing this, engineering sales, but you know, I was selling solutions for things, right? Like I was selling a product, and you gotta believe in the product. Like you gotta know that it works. You gotta know what it is, and you gotta like, you know, like yeah, you have to have confidence but you can't be like, but this is the best thing ever, right?
Yeah, it's as someone who gets, we all get pitches obviously as producers, but as someone who is a lot of the decision maker when it comes to what we take on, what we don't, I will have to, I'd have to say, like, the number one thing I always come into a pitch looking for is one word: opportunity. Is there opportunity here for us to, in our case, like, yes, make money. I want to make money. I need to feed myself. I need to put a roof on my head. I need to put clothes on my back. I also want to make amazing stuff too. I want to make stuff that hits the zeitgeist, that gets people excited, that gets people talking, that is important for the world, but also ideally get paid to also be part of that process of production. And ideally not want to pull my hair out and not want to be someone who's like, why am I in this line of work anyways? I'm not getting paid enough to do this. And that's really pretty much everyone in this industry at this point, barring even Bob Iger, I imagine, is basically financially struggling. Even like the high level, multi-$100,000 paid executives, there are a few, even they are struggling right now. And so everyone's sort of like, when it comes to a junior executive or a senior executive, it's like, what will make sure I keep my job for the next 3 to 6 months, but also like, what can I bring that's really sexy and shiny that, makes a shine in the company, but also ideally brings the company money? Because if I bring the company money, I keep my job, and that's the biggest thing. Like,
Sean, it's funny you mentioned Disney. Have you heard that quote from Michael Eisner in the 80s, that memo he sent to all Disney employees?
No, what was that?
It's very relevant to your worldview. I hate it, but I think you might like it. It's he sent a memo to all Disney employees when the company was struggling, where he said, I've pulled it up, we have no obligation to make art. We have no obligation to make history. We have no obligation to make a statement. But to make money, it is often important to make history, to make art, or to take some significant statement. We must always make entertaining movies, and if we make entertaining movies, at times we will reliably make history, art, a statement, or all three.
I think that's a great, cynical, wonderful quote. No, but I think it's exactly... That is my worldview, man. I'm on the church of Michael Eisner right now. I don't agree with many of his decisions, but I'm a devotee. That is a great quote.
You should read his book. You should read his.
I should read his book. I read Bob Iger's book, and that one talks less about that. It does, these CEOs have talked a little bit about, internal policies, internal politics, etc. I mean, that's a whole other thing. That's corporate. That's all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I mean, to a certain extent, yes. Like, I mean, we're a mission-driven company, so I know, like, we put our mission forward, but it's also our mission that ideally we monetize to actually make money and get people fed. Like, I mean, it's my shareholders are you guys. That's
and your shareholders are unionizing after this meeting. Just so.
Go ahead. All right.
So I have a comment about the pitching. Back to that. So I have done a number of where you're the team, usually two, are sitting at a table in front of all the decision makers, and there's an audience. So it's the big forum pitches. Certainly those exist in documentary. Less familiar with them in all of the scripted world, but it's where you're performing. You could be in front of 300 people, and so you're selling yourself, and you have to have that confidence without being arrogant. All the things you have to believe, you have to convey that energy, literally, and it's very timed, and it's a short amount of time, so it's rehearsed, you practice, but you practice to sound natural, basically. You also, a really solid pitch, even if it's one-on-one meetings, is when you've pre-thought through all the common questions. And in fact, when you've incorporated the answers to the most common questions about your project into your pitch. So you've nailed those questions, because otherwise you're going to be answering the same question over and over again. But if you incorporate that answer into your pitch, bang, first of all, they know you're paying attention. They know you're thinking about how your pitch is being received and how it's landing and what the obvious questions will be. So it shows well when you've answered the obvious questions in your pitch. I think one of the things that is the hardest to teach, at least in the documentary world, I have been with directors, and I've had to understand why, as we're leading up to, in the days and hours and minutes up to the pitch, they're experiencing some core anxiety, nervousness, uncertainty, whatever, because I have then had to step back and say, what is on your mind? And I need to not only understand it, but then think through how to respond and think through how to resolve that for them, so that that's not holding them back when they're pitching. And it often, one time, we were pitching a film about queer and trans issues. And this is 8 years ago. And everyone was less out at the time. And so the director told me that they were afraid of being pigeonholed by the decision makers as, oh, the director who's LGBT, who's only ever doing LGBTQ stuff. But they all know me as LGBTQ, and this is another, so I'm going to be pigeonholed. And I realized, got it. I am LGBTQ too. But most of the room doesn't know that about me. So I'm going to out myself to the room mid-pitch, so that they understand that, no, this is not just, oh, that's the LGBTQ filmmaker always making that film. Again, 8 years ago, it was a very different scene. But it was a way to calm his nerves, to address the whole thing on multiple levels. And it worked really, really well. And that was how to address that, so that when we're sitting there, we shone. And we shone, and it was like, that was a really good pitch. And it's because it's everything how you come across.
And I think the reason why that pitch would work well is because it reflects the nature of the thing you're pitching, right? And I think that's really important. If you're pitching a comedy, you got to make them laugh in the room. If you're pitching horror, hopefully they can feel some of that existential dread that you're trying to push, right? Like, you want to really create the feeling in them of what the show is also going to do.
And enthusiasm. Like, pitching is a performance. Yeah. First and foremost, it is a performance. You are a dancing monkey in front of people. There's no better way to put it. Yeah, it's actually kind of hideous, because there's a bunch of people who are decision makers who don't want to read what you sent. They just want to hear you say it, right? Want to hear you speak it to them, because their time is more precious than yours. And you spend time rehearsing the pitch. You spend time putting it together. You run questions with yourself and your producers, or if you're pitching solo, sometimes your reps, or just, your dog or whatever, just making sure that you have the answer to everything. And you'll always get a curveball that you weren't expecting, and you will have to roll with it, right? And it's that kind of stuff where you really need to be engaged. And you really need to turn off the part. I've had this conversation with a lot of writers, actually, where it's like, this is hell for neurodivergent people. You know what I mean? Like, this is awful for people. Like, I'm autistic. I don't like this. I don't like this at all. But it's like something you actually have to like work on. You know what I mean? Like, you have to sit there, and like when I'm pitching, I minimize the screen that allows me to see the faces, or I'll like pick someone in the room if I'm in person and just know that that's the person I'm pitching to, and usually it's their hairline, not their eyes. Because
I actually didn't know that you don't, when you're pitching, you have the screen minimized, the Zoom screen minimized.
Most times, yeah, unless I'm really comfortable with who I'm talking to.
You just look into the camera then.
Because like I've been on enough pitches where like I can tell someone's like checking their email or just is taking it as a courtesy rather than like because they want to, and it trips me up, and I'm like, fuck you, asshole. Like I'm here for myself at this point. I'm not here so that you have like a chance to like check your emails while using me as a podcast, right? Like so it's like I don't let that get in the way. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So oftentimes it'll just be the tiny Zoom box in the corner that I can barely see. And stuff like that, because you need to be the only person in that room. Like the worst thing is hearing people who are just dry pitching off of like a reading on a screen or just, hello, this is my project. This is King Nefertiti. It's a movie about a young girl who moves to Sudan with her family. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, it's so tedious and no one wants that. It's like what you're saying, Leonard. Like they want to feel the energy of the show in the room.
Yeah, but not just that. I think like there's also an art to not like, you know, to Lisa's point of you want to answer a lot of questions that they're going to commonly ask. At the same time, there is like a balance where you don't want to flesh out the idea so much that there's no room left for them to be like, oh, but how about this? How about this? How about this? Like you want the idea to hook them and then get them to start like pitching their own ideas because then they will start to feel some ownership.
Those are the best pitches. The best pitches are really when your pitch gets interrupted.
Exactly.
Your entire flow gets interrupted because guess what? They're so hooked and they're so excited and they're so engaged that they're already starting to pitch you stuff and be like, then this happens and well, what about this character and all that kind of stuff. Like the minute you hear those kind of things, I mean, it feels good. That doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, usually we've seen whenever that happens, they'll buy the movie or they'll buy the whatever. But we've also had situations where they want to engage. And in many cases, like there's some executives at the national broadcaster who
do not engage.
Famously are like, and I actually, Abdul, I never knew. I'm always someone who always feels accountable to the people who are on a call, so I'd never minimize them, but I never thought about the power of just being like, no, you go over there while I just filibuster my way, not filibuster, but pitch my way into your brain stem, because I don't need to see your blank faces that are like completely humorless, completely like void of any human emotion, and it feels just worse than just talking to paper or talking to a piece of metal.
There is something within a pitch too when you're verbally pitching something that requires a bit of flexibility. With Canadians, should I even say this? Fuck it. With Canadians, I always minimize the pitch, especially networks. Like it's not worth it. People are not reactive. It's something in the air here, and there's a lot of good executives at all of our streamers and broadcasters, but like they've got great poker faces. I never want to be across the Lorcana table from them, but like like with Americans, it's interesting because they're oftentimes like they take pitches not because they're ever going to pick it up, but because they really just want to know what you got and get a sense of your vibe. You know what I mean? How well you execute an idea. And with them, it's a little different because like you can feel the dip. When you know you're dipping, you're like, shit, I got to go off script and like find a joke here. Even if I find it funny, even if it's only funny to me, I have to just throw something in here to get them back, right? And stuff like that. Also, like sometimes you'll be pitching with a partner. And Shant, you were famous for doing this when we started the company, where it's like when other people were talking, I could just see you checking emails. And it's like, no, Shant, you have to like, while I'm hitting my part of the pitch, I need you to be there like smiling and nodding at every major point.
Which I do now.
Not like Joe Biden during a debate.
Yeah. Sleepy Sean. Yeah. But it's like, you know, you're almost always going to be pitching with a team. And that team needs to always feel like the first point of support for each other across the board, like especially in a pitch. Pitches should also, like in terms of like bear where we are at as an industry right now, pitches should not use a lot of visual aids. They should be 15
No.
to 20 minutes, ideally 15.
Mhm.
You should try to answer a lot of questions, but give 1 or 2 freebie questions that you know you're not going to answer because you want them to ask it, so that you can like
Yep.
immediately jump in with a response. And you cannot, in the Q&A, you cannot hesitate. You cannot fucking hesitate. I'll give you a great pitch story for a show that fingers crossed will be in development soon. But like, I pitched this show, by the way, 100 times. I'm not joking. I did the count. It was my 100th pitch that I got picked up by a mini major. And I had to do the song and dance with the enthusiasm 100 times in 1 year. I was doing 5 pitches a day 1 week, like, just because that's how they lined up. So you have to like maintain that energy for years, if not longer. And it was the last 3 where I was like, after this, I'm calling it quits. It's done. But when one of those pitches near the end, I finally got the question for this murder mystery. Well, who's the killer? And in that moment, I was like, shit. I didn't think about the answer to that question. I wanted to leave it open because I'm like, this is something I can develop. But they're like, no, we have to know who the killer is. And I'm just like, I gave them an answer, and they're like, oh, wow, we never expected that. And I was like, just kept talking, like, this is why, here's the thing, this. And I was like, God, that makes so much sense. Wow, what a great, they picked up the fucking project. And it's like, and then I had to go back to my pitch material to the Bible before I sent it to them. And
Was that the medical?
No, this is my
one?
Alaska show.
The roof
and
one.
I had to like run back into the material and add like 4 pages explaining the murder. And it looks different from the rest of the document because I had changed as a writer, over the years. So it's like, when you read it, you're like, oh, this is a really detailed explanation of why this guy killed him. And it's like, but like, I can tell you with near certainty, if I just stood there like bumbling my way through it or been like, I don't know, I want to develop that with you, that would have been like the kiss of death for the project, right? Like, you can never not.
Yeah.
That being said, we did that on Grail, where they asked us questions. We said, we actually don't, we want to develop it with you. And then that somehow worked.
I mean, it was different there because they had already read the materials.
That's true.
Like, they knew what our pilot was. They had read the pitch pages. They're like, okay, we have a sense of the project. Where does it go next? And like, we had, I think for that, those are, by the way, the best meetings where they've read the material beforehand and they just want to meet to talk about the material. It's awesome because it's just like, that's where you can just be like, what about this movie? And I love it like this. And, oh, we could make it a little like, we could put a little English on it or whatever, right? Like that meeting for Grail was so good. Yeah.
That's where it comes back to, they're partly sussing out if they want to work with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if
They're
that
also
is flowing,
they're also sussing out what is it, and do I understand what it is, which are 2 different things. That's the other thing, is like them understanding what you're trying to sell them. And I think I sort of hear Abdul when he says, it's really great to have those meetings when they've already read the material and they're engaged and they're saying, what next, which is fantastic. But I've also been in situations, more so on the receiving side, where I've received pitches where I'm like, I don't know what this show is, or I don't know what this movie is. And even if I ask a million questions, like, I don't. The thing is, yeah. And especially when I've also pitched to people where they're like, it's completely beyond their scope of understanding. And like, Leonard, we were in the room of one of the biggest companies in Canada a couple months ago, trying to explain to them a show that they had no business understanding, and yet they were the ones who requested the meeting.
Yeah. They liked the idea of it, but they didn't understand any of the references that we had for the show, and they kept trying to like pigeonhole it into references that had nothing to do with the show, or shows that had already been made, or shows that they thought it could be that it was most certainly not. And it was just like, well, there's just no way that we're going to work with this company. It makes no sense. But that pitch meeting did become the cold open for the pilot of this show. So
I was shocked. It was like they had the biggest office. Like there's just all these desks everywhere. Like all these people working. People like it's like when George is with Jerry at NBC. And it's like, these are men with jobs, Jerry. Men with jobs. Like these are serious people. Like we must like revere them. And then you go into the room, and you're like, the fuck, like.
You're like Brian Cox. You're like, you're not
you can't put
people.
two brain waves together. Like it was like the level of neuroticism there was like, oh, this is an industry built by egomaniacs and narcissists.
So yes. Also, on the weird thing about pitching is that the people you're pitching to, the funders, the commissioning editors, the streamer commissioners, whoever, both think they know what the market wants, what the audience wants, what will make money, what will get them audience. And they're also looking for the crazy, bold new ideas that that just take everybody by storm. So it's a weird cycle of, oh, now we had this movie. No one ever thought of that. It was a supreme success. Now everyone's trying to do versions of that until another cool new thing comes in. So it's a bit... they want both at once. They want things that are going to fit the formula because they know the formula has been making money, but they also want the new thing so that they don't become too formulaic. Anyway, yeah.
They want same but different. That's all it is. That's who is it? Not Sid Field. Who was the other guy?
Blake Snyder.
Yes, same guy.
Leonard, actually, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So. We're not going to name the show, but we sold a show sight unseen, for millions of dollars. Sight unseen, millions of dollars were then put on a piece of plate and handed to us. What do you think was the secret sauce, or if there was a secret sauce that was associated with that pitch, or what were the circumstances by which that pitch got us millions of dollars in our hands by the end of the week?
That pitch had a sizzle that was really, really good. That basically proved the concept of the show, that got everybody in the room. And this wasn't a pitch to like two people, right? It wasn't a pitch to just execs. It was a pitch to a big room. It was like a pitch. It was a part of a conference, right? So
it was on stage.
It was on stage. There was like 100 people in the room, right? And it killed. Like everybody was laughing so hard. It was a pitch to a very specific demographic, and so not only did that pitch, like the sizzle, basically touch on all the issues, like major issues that that are of big importance right now to in our country, but did it in such a way that kind of sidestepped all the landmines that normally come with tackling issues that are really serious and heartbreaking in some instances, and in other instances like just recalcitrant issues, right? But it did it with like such humor and in such a way that that was unique, that hadn't been done, that it was just very clear what the show was going to be, and so then that's why they bought it in the room.
I also think one of the selling points of the show, too, is the fact that it was both incredibly familiar conceptually based on a lot of other shows that had been successful, but felt like a genuine innovation on the form. Like it didn't feel like it was forcing an innovation. It just felt like a very natural extension of something that was very popular already. You know what I mean? Like, which is like also a show like that is lightning in a bottle when you get that. You know what I mean? A lot of times you're developing it, see our episode on development, to get to that point, right? But like a show like that can sell on a stage, not even in a room, you know what I mean, is incredibly rare and special.
The exec said you can name on one hand how many times
it's funny, the story of actually where Leonard and I were when we found out this was all happening, because we weren't there for the pitch. It was made by one of the key team members, And we were actually over at a friend's cottage, trying to pitch him a Power Rangers movie. And yeah, we'd made the trip out. So I think about 2 hours into the cottage country of Ontario. Like no cell service, Starlink, like Elon Musk, the whole 9 yards. Beautiful lake, and like we were the ones pitching him the Power Rangers movie, and he was like treating us to like dinner, and so it was a great time. It was like literally just like an opportunity for us to all just hang out, basically. But what was hilarious was like he was like, Power Rangers. Yeah, I never watched that show. And it was just like, what are we doing here right now? Like we basically like he wined and dined us, even though we were the ones pitching him. I mean, it was an absurd time, but it was a really special time too. Yeah.
Let's talk about packaging,
Yes.
which is such a weird part about pitching that no one talks about. For those who don't know, packaging is when you don't just pitch a project, but you pitch the team. It's who you have attached, what production companies have commitments, what actors you've gotten on board. And packaging is also one of those things that is just so funny because everyone will have a different response as to what a good package is, right? Like, you'll be like, oh, should I go in with an actor? And someone will tell you like, no. Like, what if the executive hates the actor? Like, then you're dead on arrival. And the other person will be like, well, no one can sell anything. You want a bankable actor attached, don't you? You know what I mean? Like, there's a process to this shit that is just like roll the dice, shake the magic 8-ball, like read tea leaves, do tarot, because packaging is entirely a confidence game. Like,
yeah, like I'm going into a pitch, in the next couple weeks, and one of the things was, we wanted to ensure that as part of our package, we had a showrunner attached that could prove, and we're taking, and we got a very particular showrunner that does more drama than anything, even though this is a comedy. Because our understanding is that CBC, our national broadcaster, has done some comedies where they've looked back at them and said, you know what, we haven't really focused on the emotional narratives or any of the dramatic elements of this thing, and thus we've just been chasing the laughs, but because of that, like, they're not funny because there's no underlying emotional core to any of these things. So it would be interesting if we, and they have been talking about experimenting with drama showrunners, because then they understand all that stuff. So then we're like, okay, good note. And I agree on all those things. So we got a drama showrunner, like, somebody who ran a show on NBC for like 5 seasons, like a drama on NBC. And now he's attached to our show, and hopefully that'll make a difference.
Bleep this. Who's the showrunner? Oh, fuck yeah. That's great. It is funny, though, to be fair. He is extremely funny.
He is very funny. So that's the other thing. Like, I read a pilot that he wrote, a comedy pilot, and I was just like, this is so bonkers. It's like such a wild swing. They will never make this. But I love that he took that swing. And that's only going to help us, like, when we make the show together. And so so part of packaging is, like, you also have to sell that person. You can't just, don't just show up to a meeting and be like, so-and-so's attached. If they're not, like, that's not going to go well for you.
Oh, that's a whole nother thing. That's like, if you lie about your package,
you're done.
Oh my God.
So you have to go and sell them on it. And
this is interesting. Like, there's interesting pieces to, like, what you just said, Shant, because it's like, there is, like, a very specific line between, like, someone has actually expressed interest but can't attach because the money at this point. Like, I'm going through this with a project right now where it's like, we have an A-list actress who wants to be part of the project, but won't be part of the project without money. And it's like, packaging is not the kind of thing that comes with LOIs. So those pitches are like, X person wants to be part of the project if it moves forward in development. We can tell you that honestly. And it's like, well, are they attached? And it's like, they'll be attached if you give us money. How about that? Right? Like, it's like, there's this like, but
that's
then
honesty.
Say,
but that's the truth, Abdul, right? Like,
then you want to say, like, but then you don't want to say you've overcommitted to this person because you haven't, but you really want that. You know what I mean? Like, there's like, and then people also lie, right? Like, there's a showrunner we all know who's like, I don't know why my name is on like 6 projects being pitched around. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, oh, don't do that. That's some
Well,
amateur
it's
shit. I mean?
well that's the conundrum a lot of emerging filmmakers face is just because you have a meeting with somebody and the meeting goes well in the sense that they didn't want to strangle you, suddenly they're attached to your show, which is not the truth. But we've seen it happen. We've literally seen it in front of us where we're like, no, just because they were nice to you does not mean that they're attached to your show and they're going to run it if you get us. Like, that's different than what Abdul's talking about. What Abdul's talking about is being truthful and being like, yes, we've been talking to this person, and she's directly said to us, if we go get the money, she would like to look at being part of it. That doesn't mean she's going to be part of it, right? Like, just because you say that does not. They know how everyone knows how the industry works. Everyone with money generally knows how the industry works. And so they want to know that you have skin in the game, really. And when it comes to your packages, that you've done the legwork to actually build something that's formidable and is not bulletproof, but less bullet prone in terms of, because they have to bring this thing up the chain on their side. And they have to be like, this is the best thing ever, even though it doesn't have Zendaya or doesn't have Timothée Chalamet. Like, they have to do that. So we have to give people some credit, but yeah, I mean, it's hard getting stuff financed.
I just wanted to add really quickly, packaging doesn't exist so much for documentaries, but often it's kind of simpler. But often when documentaries are trying to pitch themselves and get money, whatever particular pitching format that is, you're often talking about certainly your director, but then also an editor or sometimes a DOP, and sometimes an executive producer. Are people really like to know that those people are attached, but it's not quite. You don't really talk about a package or whatever, but it's a similar concept.
It's about the team, and it's about giving the network two things. They want confidence that if they give you money, that this thing will get made and their money will not be wasted, and then B, that they will make money back.
Yes.
And
which both very rarely actually end up happening, but yes, we all
in
believe,
Canada at least.
Try.
I think probably, like, we can probably button this by asking, like, you know, in our opinions, like, what constitutes a good package, right? Like, I can say for me, a good package is everyone has to believe in the project. That part's obvious, but like, will these people reasonably open doors for the project? Like, a lot of times you'll see projects in Canada packaged with like actors who are good actors, but actors who are, to put it very cynically, in a Shant Joshi, Michael Eisner kind of way, not bankable actors who will not be a selling point for the people who have the money, but are great actors who would be great to have, right? And then, the other part is, can you look at this package and be like, shit, all these people make sense for the project. That's great. You know what I mean? Like, that is the big one where it's like, when you find that like actor or performer or director, and you're just like, it's either such a turn, like what you were talking about, Leonard, from the stuff they've worked on before, that you're like, shit, I want to see how he handles this. Or it's the thing that they're known for, you know what I mean? Or it's like in a turn on like what the public facing expectations of them are. Like, that's with the actress we're trying to get for this show. If it moves ahead, and hopefully it's the actress that like me and the other showrunner want so badly, it's like a complete inversion of like all the roles she's known to have played when she was younger. And that's what makes it so exciting. It's like, oh god, she's perfect, because that's like the arc of the main character is the arc of like where she might be right now, right? Like,
we can bleep it. Who is it?
Pardon?
We'll bleep it.
It's who plays like an older woman who wants to be like take the body, an older woman who used to be really hot and sexy and young, and now wants to like take that away from someone else, is like trying to single white female, like a younger hot nanny that comes into her house. Nice. And then the two of them end up having a threesome with her like shitty husband. It's great. But like based on a book. But it's like like that's when we were thinking about that, when the producer, actually, it wasn't my idea, when the producer's like, what do you think of this person? I'm like, god damn. Yeah, I mean, like I was willing to, but yeah.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned the word bankable, and I think it's such an interesting term that has so much lost its meaning, I think, in the modern marketplace. A bank is a financial institution who wants to take on the least amount of risk. They're the least risk-prone financial institution there is. Like investors, angel investors, VCs, any other funding body has more of a risk has more of a risk appetite than a bank does. So when they're saying bankable, they're like, would the person with the least risk ability be able to say yes to this, which is a very small list of people. And I think instead it sort of puts you in a corner where it's like, you won't get this movie unless a bank says yes to it, basically. Whereas if you're trying to make this movie as something that people get passionate about and excited about, I would say, is this an excitable actor? Is this someone who would excite someone in order to be like, I don't care how much, like risky this is going to be. I believe in it. And
I think, Shant, it's a little different with actors compared to like with Leonard and a showrunner. And I have this with every co-show I've had retained for a show, right? They're bankable because it's not bankability. It's like, if we're going to give you potentially $30 million or more for a show, we want to make sure there's a guy here who's going to use our money right, who's reliable, who knows how he knows we can deliver them, who we know can deliver, right? And not fuck around with that money. Like, that's bankable in a sense on the showrunner front, right? I think on the actor, like the front facing side, you're 100% right.
Yeah.
But like behind the scenes, if you're attaching like a showrunner to a project, I
haven't really heard bankable showrunner. I've heard greenlightable showrunner is what I've heard.
Well, it's the same thing.
By your definition of bankable, it applies much more to a showrunner than does to an actor.
For sure.
Yeah.
But that's a different profile, right? Like actors are on screen and they're audience facing. It's about return on investment with respect to the performance of the film or the show. Whereas what you're talking about is successful delivery. And successful execution and management.
Yeah. Well, I think we should conclude this podcast. We've been running a bit, which is something you should not do in a pitch. You should keep it tight.
Never say we're concluding the pitch now. Always be like, and that's the show. Here, I'm happy to answer any questions. You got to have your ticks. Like I always end a pitch by being like, yeah, and that's Slate Against the Machine. I'm going to take my sip of water now because I've talked your ear off for a long time, and you can write the check to blah blah blah, or I can answer questions in lieu, right? Like that's the amount of times my managers had to hear that.
The awkward silence where they're just like, "I'm done. The pitch is over."
Yeah.
See,
that's why it's always good to have like a button where it's like the one I like to use is like at its heart, blah 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 is about blah blah blah, and that's it. And that's clearly a conclusion to like the pitch.
And I realize in person and online pitches are completely different. That sussing out of the energy in the room is a completely different experience.
It's like Zoom comedy versus in-room comedy.
You just don't want dead air between the time you conclude the pitch to the time they start talking. Like you immediately want to jump in and be like, "That's the show. Please, I got any questions you want here." And then that's their cue to be like, "Good pitch. We do have some questions I wrote down," because like the awkwardness, you want the vibe. The vibe has to be good. We are a vibes-based economy. We are vibe coding. We are creating vibe TV shows. We are vibing all the time. Like you got to maintain the vibe.
Exactly. So speaking of vibes, Lisa, what shows have you been vibing with lately? What have you been watching? What's going on?
Well, I tend to watch The Real World, and so I'm like really fascinated by what I really was fascinated by lately was not just the election of Zohran Mamdani as the next mayor of New York City, but all of the conversation around it in every which direction was very, very fascinating. I think it represented there's a real cultural shift happening in the United States. And it was so fascinating to see the degree to which he resonated with, shall we say, voters around the world or outside of New York City who could not vote for him but wanted to. It was a real cultural moment.
What do you mean we couldn't vote for him? I voted legally for Zohran 11 times.
Only 11? I did it 13
Only 11.
times.
I mean, the check from Soros didn't clear. So, yeah.
Anyway, that was really, really fascinating to watch and just watch a huge segment of the American population, not just the New York, but the American, get excited again. It was like it needed this spark to land and catch and prove we can generate a spark, and when it lands, it will catch, and we can all clear and restart and get re-excited and whatever. So again, my political leanings are absolutely showing through here.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows the left needs to take bigger swings. They've been going like with incrementalism.
Does it really, or does it, or what about that New Jersey governor? She didn't take some big swings.
I mean, it's also New Jersey, Sean.
Yeah.
It's basically a suburb masquerading as a state. Like, I will say, you know, if anything, the election of Zoran is proof that we just need to get more filmmakers to make movies like Mississippi Masala, and eventually that will dovetail into more successful politicians. The solution is not more Zorans, it's more Mira Nairs.
Absolutely.
We're looking at the long game here.
But
all
also,
right?
there was some interesting coverage of how they shaped their visual campaign materials and their, like, the speech he gave, his acceptance speech, his victory speech. So there was a lot of attention to the message and the sending of the message. And there's a lot of lessons in there for people who are storytelling, actually, because they were totally telling story, and it worked so well. And so that was really fascinating to take a dive into as well, to read about all the thinking behind what they put out there, which, yeah. Nice.
Well, we're grateful. New York is now a communist stronghold. Even though any communist would scream at you for 4 hours about how Zoran is not a communist.
Yeah, Fae Pictures Union will be having its first meeting in New York in approximately 25 minutes.
But
perfect. Let me know when you have agreed on terms, and we'll take a look.
We're taking back the means of production.
It's funny because, like, this is the kind of thing that starts as a joke and then slowly manifests, like, way quicker than any of us expect. Like, I know I have, like, how many employees do we have? 5? Like,
7.
7? Okay, so me, Lisa, for sure. Leonard, I don't know if you'd vote yes. I'm sure I could swing Melissa. And there's 3 votes right there. Basically, the only person we'd have to convince is Lindsay.
Sure, I'm sure she said yes. To what?
To a union. We could certify.
No, but you have
details.
Terms. Give me terms. Give me details.
It'll be bankable. It'll be bankable.
Fantastic.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, first you have to agree to first you have to certify, then you have to, like, figure out when your first collective agreement happens. Then, you know, we have to negotiate a collective agreement. The bargaining committee is probably just Lisa, because we're a small company. Negotiating across the table from Shant over lunch, you know, and then we figure out what the total package is.
Yeah, that'll probably take at least 5 seasons. So
there you go. And we finished with packaging after all. So thank you for listening to Slate Against Machine. Where can we find everybody? Shant, where can we find you online?
Well, you can find Fae Pictures at Fae Pictures everywhere: TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. For whatever reason. And me at Shant Joshi 95.
Perfect. Lisa?
Yeah, once again, I don't know. Look up my full name, Lisa Valencia Svensson. I'm not hard to find. And then you will find all my X rantings. That's basically where I post. And you'll be like, oh, okay.
Perfect. And Abdul?
You can find me on Instagram at Future Film Show, or my personal account at
we'll bleep that.
I also host
just delete the whole thing, please.
I also host a podcast called This Year, apparently, and I run something.
Excellent.
It's actually fucking. By the way, you can. All that's getting bleeped, so yeah, just bleep it out, and you can actually find me at Abdul Hawai Malik on Instagram. But also, it's fucking crazy that, Shant, you have not been invited onto the This Year podcast, which is a podcast about artists.
I was on the second episode. I was.
Oh, were you?
I was like number 2. I was way back. This was like 3, 4, 5 years ago. On the
I don't know who any of these people
I think it was
are.
I think 2019 was before the pandemic.
So that's what Abdul was not watching.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I can tell you I was not watching. Oh, I don't know who any of these people are, though, but yes. It's very funny. Yeah.
Leonard, do you want to say where you're?
Yeah,
where
you can find me at the Leonard Chan, where I'll be taking photos of our first union meeting. And that's it. Thank you so much for popping out. Have a good one. Bye.
Have a good one. Take care, everyone. Bye.